Okay, so hopefully you're in the right place. This class is either, depending on how you signed up for it, it's either IS 520 or it's MBA 614. I guess when we first set this class up here at BYU in 2007, we thought this is a class that we were offering primarily for the MBA department. And so we thought we should have an MBA number for it. And then as it turns out, MBA students kind of have to bid for their classes. So they have a certain number of points and they say, I really want that class. Well, how many of your points are you willing to bid to make sure you get into that class? And then so once a bunch of MBA students found out it's the same class to take it as IS 560, you could just sign up for it without bidding any of your points. So we end up getting a lot of MBA students who sign up for it under the other number. And I thought maybe we should just drop the or the MBA designation altogether. But if it's an MBA class, there are 1 or 2 days a semester where I'm obligated to cancel class because the MBA students are off on some kind of recruiting trips or something. And I thought, as long as it's co-listed as an MBA class, I got to cancel both classes on that day. So we will skip class twice this semester because it's still co-listed as an MBA class.
You're welcome.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Now look, I'm going to tell you all kinds of great things, and the truth is none of them are going to get as much applause as what we just got, for leaving class for a couple of days. We couldn't cancel class every day, but a couple times a semester, I guess that's all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with just some background information, and we'll actually get into some content today, hopefully answer any questions that you may have. This is the course textbook. This isn't really the course textbook, let me tell you. The course textbook is an online textbook available at My Educator, and you can find that on Learning Speed in the syllabus. I think I finally posted it so you can see it wherever I was supposed to have posted it long ago. But the story behind it is this. When I first started teaching this class, there was exactly one collegiate textbook for teaching VBA, for business programming in Excel. And the book was expensive. It was an okay book. It was a fine book, actually. It didn't have really good exercises, so I found out I was kind of making my own exercises for it anyway. And so in 2016, I said, I got to find someone who, maybe there's someone that's got a book out of print that would like to kind of bring it back into print. And I found this guy. So this was what was his name? Matthew Harris was the author of Teach Yourself Excel Programming in 21 Days. Like a 1,100-page book. And it was out of print in 2016. So it took me a little while to track him down, but I found Matthew Harris and I said, hey, wouldn't you really love to bring your 2000 book up to 2016 standards? And republish it because I need it for my class. And he said, I would be interested in doing that, and I'll do it on one condition. Now, look, when you write a book that's called Teach Yourself, in 21 Days, how many chapters do you get? Take a guess. 21. He said, but you can't limit me to 21 chapters. I said, okay, sky's the limit. I put them together with My Educator and said, you guys get together and give me a book I can use to teach. And so he ends up producing 41 chapters. He really likes to write. If there's anything, and he's excellent. He taught programming at UC Berkeley, and he's doing a good job with the book. If there's any downfall, he's a little bit wordy, but you can kind of skip some of it, I guess. And so My Educator, then after the book was created, they were like, hey, this is our biggest book. It's like 2,000 pages. If you were to print it out, don't print it. We're going to have to charge $99. They don't charge $69 as their normal price point, like just shy of $70. And I said, forget it. Look, we don't need but half the content anyway. So cut out a bunch of the content that he wrote for you and give me what I need and we'll just charge the normal price. They said, okay, we'll do that. And then they never took me the content out. So they reduced the price back down to $69 and you got the whole book, which I guess you're supposed to have lifetime access to. How many of you have purchased the book already? Go pretty smooth. Okay, it sounds like the link there is working. So you'll find that in the syllabus. That's the story on the textbook. The reason that I wanted to get us connected with My Educator is because My Educator is going to let us do automatic grading so that you'll be able to submit your homework and boom, you'll be able to get your feedback immediately. And here's the great news. Because we can do that, I'm going to give you 2 submissions on everything that you do. So first time you get a submission, it's going to come back and say, hey, you didn't quite get all the points here. And you'll have the chance to say, all right, I'm going to look at that. I didn't quite do it right. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to submit it again. And I'm going to give you the higher of the 2 scores. All right. So, I want you to learn this stuff. And okay, yeah, you can clap for that too. Go ahead, clap for that. Yeah. Here's the thing. We know a lot about human learning. And one of the things that we know about human learning is that if we want to improve it, two things. We got to shorten the feedback cycle and give you, what's your name? Give Dallin a real reason to actually read the feedback and to digest the feedback. And I haven't figured out a better way to do that than to give you a couple submissions at it, let you get the feedback quick, and then look at that feedback and go correct the mistakes that you made. So that's where we're going. Seems like I probably have something about that in the syllabus as well. Let me see if I can go on to the next part of this screen. Okay, there's the book. We talked about the book. Here's my teaching philosophy. You cannot, this is from Galileo. You cannot teach anybody anything. Isn't that a great teaching philosophy? I love that philosophy. You can only help them discover it within themselves. It turns out I really do believe that I can't teach you VBA. Now, do I think you're going to discover VBA within yourself? No, not quite there. But I think the whole point here is that I can show you all kinds of great things. And if you came and watched me do great things with VBA in class, you wouldn't learn it. How are you going to learn it? You learn it by doing it and by solving your own problems and by giving you problems that do we have any accounting students here? Just raise your hand, accounting students. I was an accounting major myself. And this was like what most of accounting was, at least in my recollection. Maybe you'll correct me if I'm just only remembering the parts that I really loved about it. Was that it was like, okay, we're going to give you a whole set of rules and some starting state. Here's a bunch of transactions that you have to categorize or whatever. Say, great, I got these transactions, I apply the rules, and I get the right outcome. Is that what most of accounting is still like today? I don't know. But a bunch of it, maybe not most, but a bunch of it. We're getting some nods here. Okay, that's what we call a structured problem. In a structured problem, you know the starting state, you know a set of rules to apply, you faithfully apply the rules, and it produces the end state. We're going to solve unstructured problems in this class. In an unstructured problem, I'm going to give you the starting state, some description. I'm going to give you an ending state. So most often you'll be starting with a blank workbook. And I'll give you an ending state, a description of what I want you to produce. But I'm not going to give any rules to get there. We'll give you some techniques and some tools, but you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to make it up along the way. It's a really different kind of learning. And the way you learn that is by getting in and doing it, and a little bit of struggle along the way. Okay, so that's where we're headed. I think I might have a clicker here. So this is what the process looks like. When I was in, that's gruesome. When I was in third grade, Mrs. Ransom brought in an incubator with fertile chicken eggs in it. Anyone ever do this in grade school? Like watch chickens hatch, over like 21 days or whatever it is. And after a couple of weeks, I don't remember how long it really took, but after a while, the chicks started poking through the shell. And they're about to hatch. And the little third graders, we're so excited. What did we want to do once that little chick started breaking through the shell? What did we third graders want to do? Say it, just say it. We wanted to help that little chicken out. And Mrs. Ransom told us, you can't help the chicken out because the chicken is developing really important muscles by breaking out of that shell. And if you help that chicken out of the shell, the chicken's going to die. She was, I don't know if the chicken would really die or not, thinking back on it now. That's what she told us. We don't want to kill the chicken, so we didn't help the chicken. But in this case, there's going to be a part of me and the TAs in this class. You're going to come to us and you're going to say, "Ooh, I'm really struggling here. Can't you help me take the shell off?" And our temptation is to be, "Yeah, I know exactly how to do that. I could show you exactly how to do that." And it's going to be our job to help you struggle through that to find the solution yourself. So this class, there's going to be a lot of struggle and there'll be some frustration. And that's all an important part of the learning. There'll be times, if you're like me, there'll be times when you'll have some problem. You won't understand why the code's not working and you will work on it for hours on this one little problem. And you just can't see it. And you'll go away from it. This happens, by the way, quite often. You'll go away from it, maybe to go to sleep. You'll collapse at your computer and fall asleep. You'll wake up in a few hours and you'll look at it again. You'll see it straight away and go, "Oh, it was a comma in the wrong place." Something like literally something trivial like that. And that is going to feel like really unproductive time to you. But that's really important time. That struggle is a really important part of the process. And that seems like a weird thing to say, but that's a big part of how you learn this stuff. Okay. Oh yeah, I had my third grade teacher's name there, Esther Ransom. That was her name. Okay, so I'm going to spend the vast majority of this class talking to you about VBA. But as a professor, I feel like I should teach you something about life as well. This is John Pingree. He gave a talk in, was it October 2017? Yeah, October 2017 General Conference, where he talked about life mission in a way that I'd never heard talked about over the pulpit before. In the church, we are used to thinking about what God wants us to do in our ministering assignment or in our calling. But what Pingree said was, we should really be thinking about what God wants us to do with our life. Like, maybe even, oh, heaven forbid, maybe even outside of my calling. What does God want me to do to find my life mission? The title of the talk was, I have a work for thee. And it comes from when the Lord talks to Moses, says to him, Moses, I have a work for thee. He's given Moses his assignment. And what do you think? Is it only prophets that get an assignment from God to do with their life's work? Hopefully, everyone is going to get an assignment from God to do their life's work. And he gave up some examples that you might have thought of. He talked about, if I remember correctly, Mother Teresa. Did he talk about Martin Luther King? I'm not sure if he talked about Martin Luther King. But he talked about a lot of other people who were doing the Lord's work, but separate from trying to advance the work of the gospel. Talked about a doctor who ran a free clinic one day out of the week, where he said, I'm going to give back to the community. And that's part of what he felt God wanted him to do. And so I was sitting, it might have been this very room, but I don't think so. I think it was like one of the room 120, wherever the accounting junior core meets. I had an epiphany. I didn't have many epiphanies in my accounting classes, but I had an epiphany in this class. What's an epiphany? A sudden realization of great truth. And it was strange. I was a junior by the time this happened. I went, oh, I'm here in college to learn stuff that people will pay me more because I know how to do. I was a junior before I figured that out. And that's not the reason that everyone comes to college, but I guess that was the reason I was at college. And it was like a great realization. But I want you to go one step further than that. And I want you to say, hey, here in this, while you're here at college, once you get the education, not just get the education you need for your career, but to get the education that you need to fulfill your life's mission. What is it that God wants you to do, and get that education? I mean, here's a great opportunity to get it. You might end up getting that education in lots of places outside of university. But while you're here, take advantage of that. Don't think of it just as your career, but think of it as fulfilling your life's mission. How many of you could say, in a couple of sentences, I know what my life's mission is, I could write it down? It'd be really weird if anyone raised their hand. I mean, maybe one or two people might. I have a pretty good feeling for what my life's mission is, but I have thought about it for a long, long time. And what was so compelling to me about Pingree's talk was he told us how to figure out what our life's mission was. I'd been thinking about life's mission before I heard the talk, which is why my ears really perked up when he's talking about the topic. And that's a question. How do you figure out what your life's mission is? And he told the answer. He said, Doctrine and Covenants, section 56. 56, 46, 46. Doctrine and Covenants, section 46. And I thought, wow, he's really right. What's section 46 talk about? Talks about spiritual gifts. In section 46, it says a couple things. It says there's all kinds of different spiritual gifts. Nobody has them all. And everyone has at least one. There's a question. You're going to answer this question really loud. If you can think of the answer, tell me your name. Sydney. Hi, Sydney. I'm recording this. Is that okay with you? Sure. If you okay. Why does God give you a spiritual gift? Is it to bless your life? Whose is it to bless? It's to bless others' lives. Okay, good. You got that right. As far as I can see, I think that's right. God gave you a spiritual gift. Everyone's got a spiritual gift. Do you know what your spiritual gift is? No. Dallin? You may not. That's okay. You don't have to know what your spiritual gift is. But here's the thing. God gave everyone a spiritual gift, at least one. Some of you are really capable. You got 4 or 5 spiritual gifts, but section 46 tells us everyone has one, at least one. And why did he give you that spiritual gift? To bless other people's lives. He gave you that blessing, that gift, that thing that you're good at. He gave it to you to help fulfill your life's mission. So if you want to think about what your life's mission is, start by identifying what spiritual gifts the Lord has given you, because that is a clue. Because he gave you that gift so you could fulfill your life's mission. So what is it that you're good at? And spiritual gift doesn't have to be something that you would hear about in Sunday school. Spiritual gift could be like public speaking. That could be a spiritual gift. A spiritual gift could be the ability to really listen well to other people. So, what is it that God has blessed you with an ability to do? And I'm here to tell you that he blessed you with that so you could fulfill your life's mission. So start there, find out what is it that I'm actually good at? What's the blessing God's given me? And say, okay, how do I use that to make the world a better place, to bless other people? And that may very well get you down the road thinking about what your divine mission is. Because when you get to be my age, I'm 52, I think, early 50s. When you start to realize there's more of your life behind you than it is ahead of you, you're kind of starting to think, how is the world going to be a better place because I came through it? How is it that I have done what God wanted me to do while I was here on the earth? And so I would really love for you to think about getting the education that you need to fulfill that divine mission, to develop those spiritual gifts to fulfill your divine mission. Okay, the robe. How come I'm wearing the robe? This is like a minute or so. I'll just go ahead and listen to this and I'll tell you. Oh, I'm not sure I even checked the sound. This may or may not work. August 1983, I think that says. 83?
23 years ago today, you were at the lunch class.
Hugh Nibley.
On the same occasion, I gave you opening prayer, in which I said, quote, "You have met here today, clothed in the black robes of the false priesthood." Now, many have asked me since then whether I really said such a shocking thing, but nobody has ever asked what I meant by it. Why not? Well, some of the answer already, and as for the rest, you do not question things at the BYU.
I think that's the end of that quote. Okay, so why am I wearing the robes of the false priesthood to come here to teach in class? It's an interesting story. What was my major? What was my undergraduate major? It was accounting. I was an accountant. My first professorship was, when I graduated with my PhD from the University of Minnesota, they said, all right, you're going to walk in graduation, you got to have a doctoral robe. I could rent it or I could buy it. I said, well, I'm going to be a professor. I'm going to have to wear it every once in a while. I might as well buy it. So that's before I found out that it costs more than $600 to buy it. Well, okay, I guess I'm going to buy it anyway. It is by far the most expensive garment I own. I mean, nothing else even comes close. I mean, I've never even purchased a suit that costs more than this, but that's at least 2 garments there, and this is just one. And so my first professorship was at Tulane University in New Orleans, and we actually held our commencement in the Superdome. Is that the big sporting thing in New Orleans? In the Superdome. And the first year, I was like, oh, it was amazing. The pageantry and everything was amazing. The second year, it was exactly the same as the first year. I mean, everything except the commencement year was exactly the same. It was like ho hum. This is before the days of cell phones, so I couldn't have a cell phone to keep myself occupied while I'm having 100,000 names read to graduate. And so what did I do? I built an amortization table for my robe in my head. This is what accountants do. I mean, if you're an accounting, you may not know this yet. You'll have this experience. And so, I did a little bit of math and I went, oh, wow, it costs me $37.50 every time I put on this robe. And then I thought, if I wore it twice as often, it would be half as much. And so after that, I started wearing the robe to first day of class at Tulane. Just show up first day of class and wear the robe. So then Hurricane Katrina came and our house got flooded and we got out of there. And I took a job here at BYU. And then I have to decide, am I going to start wearing the robe again here at BYU? Because people look at you weird on the first day of class when you're walking around in your graduation robe. It's not a graduation robe, by the way. It's an academic robe. It used to be that all professors wore the robe all the time. This is our academic uniform until about the 1940s. In the 1940s, the professor here in America said, how come we're wearing the robe all the time? What would happen if we went to class without the robe? And they gave it a try. And you know what happened? Nothing. Like, yeah, we're done wearing the robe. There's still some, I don't know of any universities in the States where professors regularly wear the robe. There's still a few in Europe where, yeah, you're expected to wear the robe. Oxford University professors wear the robe all the time. And so I thought, well, I never decided not to wear the robe. So I came to class and I said, okay, I'm gonna wear it to first class here at BYU too. Now, this is before we had the addition on the building, and I was a new guy in the business school. So where did I teach? Not in the Tanner building. I had to walk across campus to the class I'm teaching. I'm over in the JKB and I'm, first day of class and wear the robe. And I show up to the second day of class just wearing a regular suit, not a robe. And there was a student sitting kind of in the front of the class, was getting ready for class. And the student said to me, Professor Allen, where's the robe? And I said, I was just going to wear it the first day. And he goes, oh, I liked the robe. And I said, really? I said, I like the robe too. And I took a poll of that class. I said, how many of you think I should wear the robe every day? And it was unanimous. You should wear the robe every day. They want me to wear the robe. I want to wear the robe. Why wouldn't I wear the robe? I am now down to less than 80 cents per donning on the robe. In less than 3 years, I'm going to get less than 50 cents, and that's when I'm going to retire. Okay. Okay, so I think so that's why I wear the robe. I really think the robe is great. Okay. So, all right, let's cover a couple things in the syllabus. First of all, is there anyone that over the weekend did not get an email from me? If you did not get an email from me and you were signed up for the class before like last Saturday night, that means somehow the email I sent to you didn't make it to you, went to your spam folder or something. So we need to somehow amend that. So reach out to me if you didn't get that welcome email, because I do want to make sure that I've got an open email communication channel with you. So we'll find a way to remedy that. Okay, so we talked about the textbook. Okay, so we got a Slack channel. I think I put an invitation to the Slack channel on Learning Suite. And here's Learning Suite. No, here's Learning Suite. That's not Learning Suite. That's Zoom. I thought I had it on a different tab. Okay. So let's go back to the schedule. Let's go back to, I'm in instructor view. This is where I want to be. Okay. So yeah, I think I gave you, Slack workspace invitation. So right now we only have one TA for this class, and I kind of expected him to find some other TAs for me. I think we're going to end up with 3 for this class, as long as a bunch of you don't drop in the first few days. Otherwise we'll have 2. But our TA is right now on his honeymoon, so he'll be here next week. I hope his mind will be back in the game when he gets back. And so I'll be looking, I'll probably send out an email today or tomorrow and try to some of my other students, former students, to get a couple more TAs lined up. But here's the idea behind Slack. So Slack is really a place that I want you guys to have discussions. In terms of reaching out to the TAs or reaching out to me on Slack, I do try to keep an eye on Slack, but it's probably not your best way to reach out to me. I'll talk to you about what your best way to reach out to me is. But this is a kind of a place where you can kind of have discussions among yourselves. So, so that's what Slack is there for. Let's see what else we got going on here in the syllabus. It's on a different tab. Okay, so Q for requesting help from the TAs and Professor Allen. So we set this up because we needed a way when we weren't holding classes because of COVID to be able to interact with students. And it turns out to work really well, that we're going to kind of keep using it. So here's the idea. Over here, auto save your work. Okay. So let me just come back to, so it's byuhelp.blogspot.com. I just published this on a blog because it was free and easy to publish it there. I'm going to come to the IS 520 page. Ultimately, our TAs will kind of post what their office hours are here. Sam. Oh, maybe I have another TA already called Sam. Sam, are you here? I think I might have hired one more, but I forgot about him. I hope he reaches out to me sometime. It was a long time ago. It was before summer, so you can forget something like that. Okay. So the idea here is that you will come in and you're going to give me some information. You're going to put your net ID. You're going to put, that's how I'm going to validate you to know you're allowed to ask a question here. So give me your net ID. You'll choose kind of what the question's about. These are all the assignments in the class. Is there an other at the bottom? There's an other, so you can always say other. And then a brief description about kind of what you're dealing with. Just like one line, so I can kind of get my mind in the game before I connect onto you. And then you'll give me a Zoom link. So here's how to connect with me. I'll be in my office a lot. unless I'm very much mistaken, our department TA is ultimately going to bug me enough that I'm going to give her official office hours. But I am always willing to talk to you anytime in my office, which is anytime that I'm not teaching. I usually get in at about between 5 and 6 a.m. And I'll be here till 5, usually. I teach a lot of classes on Tuesday, Thursday, but this is the only class I teach Monday and Wednesday. So there should be lots of times that you come in and see me. So if it's convenient to come into my office, that's great. If it's convenient to reach out to me here through this queue, that's fine as well. So when the TAs are on their office hours, this will be a great way to contact them, to be able to interact with them. It really worked really well under COVID conditions. We'll see if it still works okay when we're meeting mostly in class. You'll give me a Zoom link, then a private note that kind of won't appear in the queue. You'll then kind of see who's waiting in the queue. This is me just checking to make sure I had it set up well this semester. By the way, when you do that, see, I think right now I'm the one on call. We've got a TA who's off duty and on call. That's me on call, which means that when you submit this here, a text message gets sent to my phone that says you're waiting to be helped. So I'll get that. I usually go to bed around 9:00 p.m. I'm really a morning person. So if you're trying to reach out to me, and I'll probably leave myself on call, but if it's past 9:00, I'm not going to hear the text message. But I really am glad to have you kind of contact me anytime that you're working on it, and I'll do what I can to help you. Okay, so that's kind of how we'll handle help. Always kind of welcome to come to my office for help as well as also. Questions here? Okay, it's my intention to record every class that we have. I'm not going to record me because I don't feel like I got to stand over there by the podium. I'd like to walk around a little bit while we talk. I'll record the screen. There is a syllabus quiz posted. So I'm going to expect you to kind of go through the syllabus and be able to answer all those questions in the syllabus. The last question in the syllabus is a release for you to allow me to use your voice. And I think I even asked for your image as well, but we won't be video recording in here. So it's just, if you ask a question, I'm asking you to waive your right to protect that question from being available to other people. And that will just make it easy for me to be able to publish these so that folks have access to them. And in fact, you can decline to waive your right to protect your voice from being published. In which case we'll have to have a protocol for you to ask questions. I'll pause the recording while you ask the question or something. We'll make a way for that to work. It's not a requirement for you to be in the class or anything. But what I'm currently doing is I'm just publishing them without restriction, with the idea that you'll be able to access them long after you graduate. So when you no longer have access to Learning Suite, you'll still be able to review the content from this course. Perhaps someday BYU will tell me to take those down from a publicly place. I can imagine that they would do that, but they haven't done that yet. And so it's my intent just to make them available to be helpful. Speaking of that, there's probably a link to this too also on this schedule to where I'm going to be posting the videos. Did I put that here? Course textbook. I will put a link to where those videos are posted there, but it's just vbacourse.blogspot.com. vbacourse.blogspot.com. So here's August 30th. If I was to go to August 30th, here's a link to the course textbook, which is on every page. And then I'll fill in, if it's before class, if there's files you need to download for class, they'll be listed here. The class video will get posted here. And then whatever work I do in the class, I will post that as a file here too. So you can kind of just, at least have everything that I've done in class. And the idea here is that, my hope is that you'll kind of follow along with the stuff that we do in class. So we will do great and amazing things. And I'd like to do it along with me. But sometimes students kind of fall behind and they feel like, oh, I'm probably the only one who's behind out of 100 students that are in this class. And so I'm not going to say anything. When, if you're behind, chances are at least a quarter of the class is also behind. But if you feel like, oh, I don't want to tell Professor Allen that I need help or to slow down or ask for the TA to help, you can just say, all right, you know what? In a few hours after this class is over, that video will be posted. I could go back and I could slow it down, or I can speed it up. I can skip the parts that I want and just kind of go through it. So that's the idea. Did someone just send me help? I just got a text message. Didn't see it in time. Was that the TA? He's on his honeymoon. Hey, professor, how's class going? I hope he's not thinking about me while he's on his honeymoon. That's, that would be, yeah, that'd be bad. Okay, there's the link to the textbook, learning outcomes. I'm supposed to put some learning outcomes in. I forgot what those were. Here's the grading scale. Teach some more detailed teaching philosophy. Homework and projects. There's two kinds of assignments I'm going to have you do in this class. Homework projects. And by the way, everything in this class is going to be due on a day that we meet. And there may be something may come up where there's some university thing where we go, okay, I'm going to give you a couple of extra days on this. But my intent is to say this is due on a day that we meet. Homework, I expect you to, is me trying to get you to engage the material before the lecture. So the idea is, maybe we're going to be talking about how to work with workbooks. Have you create workbooks. Maybe you've got to create 12 workbooks based on this data that's on a web page. And so we'll talk about code that actually makes workbooks. And so it might be that I'd like you to just know how to create a workbook through code before we get started. Now I'm going to teach you that in class that day, but my intention is that you'll engage the material in the textbook before class, learn at least enough to do the homework before you come to class. I'm not going to make that due before you come to class. I'm going to make it due at the end of the day when you come to class. So if you really wanted to, you could look at the homework and say, he's going to tell us about this in class today anyway. I'll just, learn it in class so I can do the homework in the few hours after class before the end of the day. Things will always be due at 11:59 p.m. on the day that it's mentioned. That would be a disservice to you. I won't know the difference. I won't know if you're doing that, but it'll be a disservice to you because your learning experience won't be as good in class if you haven't already kind of got your mind into the material before you come. Will it be easier? Yeah, that would be easier to just come to class and learn what you need to do the homework then. But you'll get more out of this class if you engage that homework before class. And I would love for you to get together in teams of 2 or 3. Don't get together in teams of 20, but to get together in teams of 2 or 3 and say, let's figure out this homework together because this is stuff I haven't taught you yet. There's resources in the book. If you want to Google it, you can Google it. But the idea is I want you to engage it before you come to class. So for homework, it's okay to work together. It is okay to 3 or 4 of you to get together and come up with one solution working on it together, as long as each one of you types the answer yourself. So no copy and pasting, no slacking code to other people so they can copy and paste and put it in or whatever. But as long as you're typing it yourself, you're okay on homework. I would like to have some other requirement on there that says your mind was actually engaged in the group discussions to come up with it. That's further than I'm going to go because I can't really enforce that. I really can't enforce any of this, but at least say your fingers are doing the typing. That's for homework. Now, this is to get you ready for class. And so if you aren't really engaged in the homework, you're not as ready for class as you might otherwise be, that's your problem, not my problem. Okay, you could have done better. And homework's not worth all that much anyway, and I'm okay. Projects are different. There'll be 6 projects in this class. The project is where you show me that you can do what we've gone over in class. And so this is stuff that's usually due a week or more after I've covered everything you need in class to be able to do it. And they're going to be, sometimes they're going to take you hours and hours to do. Like the 5th project. The 5th project was kind of designed as a final project. It covers a lot of ground from the course. I used to have it due on the last day of class, but there's so much other stuff happening in the last week of class that I kind of flopped the last 2. So you're going to get kind of the cumulative project is going to be due a few weeks before the end of the semester. And then the very last project will be a little bit lighter, just to kind of help you balance your work. But here, these you've got to do on your own. Now, I used to say you're only allowed to talk to 3 people on a project. You're allowed to talk to the TA, to the professor, and to God, those 3 people to get help on the project. I relaxed that now. I'm going to let you talk to any of your fellow students about the project. So I'm asking you to draw a different line. It's not who you're allowed to talk to, so you can still talk and work with people, but here's the distinction that's critically important on projects. And this will be an honor code thing. I can't enforce this. This is just your honor code kicking in. You're not allowed to look at other people's code. You're not allowed to share your code with someone else. So if you're talking with someone about trying to deal with a project, for instance, we're going to use something called Selenium to be able to automate Chrome in this class. So you'll write programs that will open up Chrome and tell Chrome to go off to this web page and log in and go collect this data and bring it into Excel. You might struggle with that. And it's okay to talk to, tell me your name. Sam. It's okay to talk to Sam about it. But Sam can't show you any of her code. Sam can say, well, hey, make sure that you've declared a bot object. And you can declare that as type object. These are words I don't expect you to understand yet. declare that as type object. And we're not going to kind of go any deeper into code than that, but it'd be okay to talk about, how do you approach it? She might say, well, make sure you log in, make sure that the first thing you do is log in, those kinds of things, but not here's the code. Now, I said you can't share code. I guess that would include actually like reading your code to someone else. It's not that you can't see it, but yeah, you can't just take someone else's code, however you might get it, okay? And so that's the big difference between projects. Projects are a big part of the grade in this class. And this is really where you're going to learn it. Because here's where you're going to struggle. This is where you're going to say, I know we went over this. He's asking us to apply it in a little bit different context than we saw in class. You're going to get in it. Questions here? Okay. Yeah, question. So the question is, are we allowed to look through the internet for ideas for our code? And the answer is yes. Now, what would you do if you were looking through the internet and you found one of my former students who had posted his solution to one of my projects? Would that be okay to use? No, that wouldn't be okay to use. I would really appreciate if you'd let me know that. I'll have that person, take it down. But yeah, if you're kind of looking and you're finding, because that's a big one. That's how you're going to solve real problems. You're going to, I'm not quite sure how to do this. You're going to Google it. You're going to find something happening on Stack Overflow. And you'll talk about it. You go, that's not quite what I'm doing, but that's going to get me going in the right direction. Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. So if you copy some code off of like Stack Overflow and you bring it into part of your solution, do you have to put a comment in there that tells me where it came from? The answer is no. I'm never going to look at it. I'm never going to look at your code anyway, unless you ask me to look at your code. So that's kind of not what you do in the world of programming. In other academic contexts, you probably should give, you should cite where you got something, even ideas. And we just don't do that in code writing. So that'll be okay here for this class. Oh, I've never said that before, and I wonder if that's really true. So I hope that's right. Okay, other questions? Oh, question over here, yes.
Are we going to be needing like laptop during class?
Will you be needing to use a laptop during class? And the answer is, I'm going to pace the class in such a way that you could follow along with me if you choose to follow along with me. But there will be nothing that we do in class where it's like, okay, you've got to take this quiz and you've got 5 minutes, so get on your laptop and do it. So yeah, if you think, I'd rather come and engage my mind and just kind of listen and watch, and maybe go back and look at the video and kind of do some of the stuff along, then I think that would be good. That would be just fine. I think it would probably be an unwise way to go through the class to say, I'm just going to come here and kind of sit and watch and then just try to do the assignments from there. That would be, it's up to you, at least for me and the experience now of the thousands of students that I've taught this content to. It's a really important part of this is to work through the examples that I work through in class. And so either in class or after class with the videos is what I'd recommend, but there's no way that I'm requiring you to do that. That's just my recommendation. Other questions in the back?
We have a roommate or family member who's got to take class debate, they're like experienced in this stuff. We ask them questions. The same rules apply, or do we only reach out?
Yeah, so the question is, what if my buddies, like my roommate is a VBA genius? Can I talk to him about my project? And so in this case, if your buddy is like, oh yeah, I could totally do that in my sleep, here's how we would do it, let's talk about it together, that's no good. I really need the solution to be your solution. And so, yeah, I guess maybe I overstated your ability to talk. I don't want you to kind of lift someone else's solution, even if you're not going all the way down to the code. If someone else is like telling you to do this, 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 that's not following the intention of the project, because the project is for you to show me that you can do it. If you get stuck and you need some help on something, talk to someone else, that's okay. But you're not going to have someone kind of guide you through the whole thing. So that's the intention here. Go ahead. Are there tests besides the projects? Yes. Midterm and a final. We'll get to those in just a second.
Just curious about the
Oh, the question about the syllabus quiz, where can we find it? Hopefully I can find that myself. Usually I have a TA show us how to do that. And so let's take a look at that right now. Syllabus quiz. So hopefully, now my intention is that everything that needs to be due shows up here in assignments. And so if I had done this right, the syllabus quiz would be listed here as opening here and like closing somewhere. So let me just quickly see if I can amend that. Let me come to, oh, thank you. Great. Somewhere here should be a syllabus quiz. Okay, there it is, syllabus quiz. Oh, it's in the homework, that's right. So points is 10 points. It's supposed to start on 9/27. That's September 27th. Is that when it starts? Or is that when it's due? That's the due date. So anyway, you should be able to see it under the list of assignments. Why that's not quite showing, I'm not sure. That seems like it should be showing. So anyway, you should be able to find the syllabus quiz there and do it before too long. Okay, excellent. So tell me your name, who asked the question? Shen? One more time. Zishen? Oh, I feel so good about that. Is because you asked a question. It's now your responsibility. Send me an email to remind me to get this working. Okay. And I'll have it working shortly after class. I'm confident in my skills on Learning Suite to get that actually working shortly after class. And it will show up. There'll be a link to it in the schedule. There's a column to just everything that's due, and it'll show up there. Okay. Whew, other questions? In the back.
So when we get the textbook on My Educator, it asks for its ID. Are we supposed to use our like 7 or 9 ID, or use our net ID?
Use your net ID. So the question is on My Educator, it's asking for an ID. Which one should I use? Use your net ID. Your net ID is the one that's not all numbers. Technically, you could have a net ID that's all numbers, but that's pretty unusual. You've got a long one, it's like 9 digits. That's not the one. The one that's on your card, your BOUD card, that's not it. It's the one you use to gain access to university network resources. So if you already did it and did the wrong one, there's a way for you to go in through your account and change what your identifier is. Yeah, they don't let me change it, but they let you change it. It'd be really nice if I could change your identifier, and I think it's some security reason they don't want professors changing their students' identifiers. So you've got to get that right. Other questions? Ooh. Have we really been at this for 45 minutes? How can that be? All right, I think that's going to get us started. So let's jump into the content for today. In fact, what did I say? The content, it's chapters 1 and chapter 3. Learning about macros, understanding objects and collections. Okay, let me just give you a little bit of history on macros. There's not a whole lot of content really in chapter 1. Macros to me is a really weird word, but let's go with the question.
You just said you were going to get to the midterm and final.
Oh, midterm and final, thank you. So there's a midterm and a final. They are both to be administered in the testing center. And they're like multiple choice questions. It's like on paper, you're gonna show me your coding ability in the projects. I'm gonna kind of ask you questions about what you know in the kind of on paper, multiple choice. Here's A through C or A through D things, pick the one that's the right answer for this. And the truth is that because I'm allowing you like 2 submissions on everything else, most of you are going to have nearly full credit on all the homework and projects. And so most of the distribution in this class, and the dean requires me, I would love to give you all A's, I really would. I will still give a whole bunch of you A's and A minuses, and there'll be a few B pluses and some B's. But most of that distribution is going to come from the exams. So, but I will really help to prepare you for that, as we get close to them. I've requested dates for those exams. The last time I checked, they hadn't approved them yet, but they probably have approved them. So they may be amended a little bit from what's already listed in the syllabus. So don't buy your ticket home for the end of the semester until I get that final exam thing confirmed. So thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, so macro to me, I've said macro now so long that it sounds like a normal word, but it seems now a really weird word to describe what a macro is in Excel. A macro is just a block of code that does something. And it used to be, man, if we roll the way back clock to the 1970s, you guys weren't even born. I was. In the 1970s, it was really the birth of the personal computer. Businesses looked at the personal computer and went, that's like pointless. Why would you even need a personal computer? And until a company called SuperCalc was the first electronic spreadsheet. No, VisiCalc. VisiCalc was the first electronic spreadsheet. What could VisiCalc do? It had rows, it had columns. You could put a formula in a cell that referenced cells, values in other cells. That was it. That's all it could do. And it was mind-blowing. Like the idea that you could specify out kind of a whole, like a whole model, change one of the inputs and have everything go through without having to do any other calculations by hand. Oh, that was just amazing. It was the 1970s. I mean, it was a bad time. There was bad fashion, there was bad hair. But it was the invention of the electronic spreadsheet. Its successor was really kind of succeeded in the market by a company called SuperCalc, which now started to bring in some other features. And it was when the Apple II computer, this is before the days of Mac, right? This is not a graphical interface, there's no mouse. It was when Apple II said, oh, you know what? We're gonna implement SuperCalc, that businesses took personal computers seriously for the first time. They said, you know what? We can buy this device, someone can use it to manage the budget for their department, and that is worth the $5,000 that we're gonna spend for it. It was not long after that we realized, when we start to use spreadsheets in business, that we realized, wow, we do exactly the same thing over and over again. It's a new month, and we're gonna type exactly the same keys. There's no mouse yet. We're gonna type exactly the same keys. And so SuperCalc, was it SuperCalc the first one? I'm not sure who made the first recordable macro, but what they said was, you know what? We're just gonna let you record the keystrokes. So you start recording your keystrokes, you type it, and we'll record it. Where do we put those keystrokes? You picked a cell, we just put them on a spreadsheet somewhere. Here's all the keystrokes you're typing. And then you could go back and say, replay this list of keystrokes. And it would go through and do exactly what you'd done before. You know, the way you invoke a menu is by hitting /F would bring down the file menu, and you'd arrow down a couple of times and choose something, and you're just recording all those keystrokes. And that got us from probably the 1980s is when that came around, up until 1995. In 1995, and this is the way that Excel first did macros as well. In 1995, Microsoft said, we're going to totally change the way that we think about macros. Now, instead of recording keystrokes, because as soon as the mouse came around, it got a little more confusing because now you had keystrokes and the mouse. We're not going to record the keystrokes that you did. Instead, in a computer language, we're going to record the statements to do what you just did. There's a fundamental shift in the way to think about automating spreadsheets. Now, the language that we're learning today is called Visual Basic for Applications. Does anyone know the name of the language that Microsoft introduced in 1995? How old were you in 1995? 10 years old. So when you're 10, spreadsheets was probably the most important thing in your life. And this is new. What was the name of the language that Microsoft first introduced in 1995 for doing the stuff we'll be doing today with VBA, with Visual Basic for Applications? It was Visual Basic for Applications, exactly the same language. As it turns out, kind of when I was a student, learning to program systems, I thought, I'm going to have to learn, like totally retool every 4 or 5 years, a new language comes out. I learned VBA in 1995, like when it was released. I was like, oh, this is great, I got to learn this. It's the same language, 95, 2005, 15, 30 years. 30 years, is that right? 20 years? Anyway, 36 years. That's a long run out of a language. And so it happens to be the same language, which is really kind of amazing to me. So let's go ahead and see then what to do, how we're going to work with this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Excel. Oh, shoot. I also want to do this. At the beginning of every class, I'm not taking attendance this term. And the reason is because I'm going to be recording things. If you are feeling ill at all, the last thing I want you to do is to say, it's probably just a cold. I'm going to go ahead and come in because I don't want to miss Professor Allen's class because he's going to give me a teeny amount of extra credit for having great attendance. So no extra credit for attendance. I'll give you extra credit for something else, I think, for filling out the course evaluation instead at the end of the term. But the way I used to do it was I'd put up some quote and you'd have to go to a web page and you'd pick the year the quote was made and say the name of the guy who did it, and I would know you were there in class for the quote. And so I almost thought maybe we should do attendance anyway, because it turns out people really like hearing the quotes at the beginning of class. And so we'll do this one. We'll do it at the beginning of class. We'll do this one next time at the beginning of class. Even though we're not using it for attendance, it's kind of a beloved part of the class. And so we'll keep doing it. But I'm going to close this one. Okay, so I have Excel open here. Maybe I'll open a new workbook. File, new. Okay, so this should be the way that Excel looks for you when it's first open. They've increased the resolution, which is really great, except for the menus now are really tiny. Let's see, Windows plus, Control Windows. Oh, there it is. Whew, there we go. Okay, so you got all these menus. Windows. I should be able to, minimize that. Okay, so it turns out that to work with VBA, to really work with VBA, we need a tab in the ribbon up there that's not there by default. It turns out that there is so much raw power available to you with VBA that the good folks in Redmond, Washington don't want mere mortals having access to it. You know, I mean, it's like, and the truth is, you don't want my mother playing around with VBA. I mean, she could do something really wrong with it. And so they're not even gonna let her find it. And their feeling is, if you can't figure out how to show the VBA tools, you don't have a ticket to the show, right? You're in luck. I'm gonna show you how to do it. It's really easy. Here's how you do it. One more thing before we do this. I'm assuming that you are running Excel in Windows. If you've got a Mac, you can virtualize to get Windows. That's going to be the assumption. Most of what we do in this class, you could probably do on a Mac, but there's going to be a few assignments that you can't, that we're relying on Windows-specific things. And so if you want to work through that on your Mac for the assignments you can, and maybe go to the library to work on a Windows machine, I think I told you there's no virtualization for the M1 if you've got a new Mac yet. One of my students emailed me back and said, wait a minute, Parallels just released their virtual environment for the M1. So you may be able to do it. And from everything I've heard about the M1, it's incredible in terms of performance. So virtualization should be great on any M1 platform. So I will tell you how to do it in Mac if I can remember it. But in Windows, here's how you do it. I choose File, and it might just be a good way to do it along with you. What we're doing is we're getting to the Developer tab in the ribbon. And you'll see there is no Developer tab here for me. So I'm going to choose File. And I'm going to go down to the bottom to where it says, is it Options? Yeah, Options. And then over here on the left, it's going to say Customize the ribbon. And then right down here, they're all checked except the Developer tab. It just unchecked the Developer tab. So I'll check that, and that's going to make the Developer tab available. You know, if that Home ribbon is too pesky for you, you could uncheck that. Who needs the Home ribbon? I don't know. Uncheck the Home ribbon. You know, or if your roommate goes away and leaves his computer open, you could uncheck. No, don't do that. That'd be a sin. You'd have to repent. But I do encourage repentance, so I don't know. All right. Okay, so now I've got the Developer tab. So the Developer tab is going to be where we have the tools that we need to really take full advantage of what we can do with VBA. And so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to come to where it says Visual Basic. And one of the reasons that Excel is a really, really great place to learn to program a computer is because of this thing called the macro recorder, right? Where we can just say, you know what, I'm going to do something and have Excel write the code for me. So we're going to get into that next time we get together, but not today. Today, we're just going to kind of snoop around a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you about objects, properties, and methods. There's some important lingo for us. So recording macros is going to be a big way that we get started, but not today. Today, I'm just going to click on where it says Visual Basic. And that's really Visual Basic for applications, but we can't fit that whole thing here onto the little button. And so we just call it Visual Basic. And that will bring up my Visual Basic window. And it's just another window that's sitting on top of Excel. So it's not like, oh my gosh, Excel looks so different now. It's just a separate window. Okay, any of you on a Mac today? I need to get there, so I got to remember how to do this. You go to the Excel menu, up in Excel. And then is there like properties or preferences? Who's got a Mac with me? I can tell you if I can see it. Anyone Mac here? Okay.
I already had my own.
That's
so
right.
I don't know how to-
Click on, go to the menu. So not in the ribbon, but go to the menu at the very top, click Excel. And then preferences. And then there's one called ribbon and toolbar, and that should take you to the same place. Yeah. So that was in the menu at the top, Excel, preferences, ribbon and toolbar. And that will bring up something that looks very similar. Okay, so first little piece of lingo here is that anytime we're going to have code that we want to save in the workbook, and we're going to work quite a bit with something called the immediate window, which is just come in and write some code just to do something, but you don't really want to save that. You just want to test something out or something. But if you're going to save code, it has to be in what's called a module. So module is just a place that you save code. So when you start recording a macro, it's going to make a module to put it in because that's where code gets saved. You can't save it unless there's a module to make it for you. But we're just kind of starting to kind of get some feeling here. So we're going to come to the insert menu and we're going to insert a module. We're going to have a lot of time talking about this thing called a user form module. We won't talk about class modules in this course. So just a module. And then this is just a place where I can write code. Now, when I write a macro, or another name for macro is a VBA sub procedure. And the truth is, when you're talking to recruiters and such, you probably want to say VBA sub procedure instead of macro because it makes you sound more like you know what you're talking about. So yeah, I wrote a sub procedure in VBA to do this rather than I wrote a macro to do this. It's just a matter of, do you really understand the lingo here? There's a slight kind of difference. There are some sub procedures that are not macros. We'll talk about those later, but that's how the language we normally start it. It turns out when you make a sub procedure, you're going to type in the keyword sub, and I'm just going to modify my environment here. Tools, options, editor format. I'm just going to go to a larger font. Let's bump this up to like 20, 24, and instead of Courier. By the way, this is like one of the greatest environments ever. It's a scroll bar with no scroll bar. You can see like 2.5 lines. I think, yeah, leave it to Microsoft. I think it's called MS Sans Serif QR. There it is. That's the one. I'm only changing this so that you can see it better on the screen. In fact, now that we're there, I think I'm going to go ahead and exit out of large mode. So I'm going to create I'm creating a sub procedure. I'm making a macro from scratch. After today, we're going to start off a lot by recording something. But today, we're just kind of starting from scratch. Sub, and let me just call this object property method. And I didn't really want me to be yelling at you. So let me take my caps lock off. Object prop meth. Well, maybe method, MEHTOD. You'll find out I'm really not very good at typing. Now, when I hit enter on that line, the VBA interpreter, or here I should say the editor, says, oh, you need to have opening and closing parenthesis at the end. Part of it's just the syntax. We'll learn what those are for later. And you're going to have an end sub. And so this block of code starts with sub, ends with end sub, and everything inside that then is the macro that I'm writing. Now, it turns out I could have multiple macros, as long as they have different names, right here in the same module. So, this is number 2. We're just going to start with 1, but the point is you don't have to have a separate module just for each macro. You can put multiple macros or multiple sub procedures into one module. Okay, so the first idea that we have to understand is this thing called an object. So back in the 1980s, well, the 1960s was invented something called object-oriented programming. It really became popular in the 1980s. And I remember taking a class in the hallowed halls of this very building called object-oriented programming. I was about 3/4 of the way through the class before I realized I still don't really know what an object is. But you're in luck. So is VBA an object-oriented language? Yes, it has most of the characteristics that other object-oriented languages have. It's missing some that people say, well, it's not fully object-oriented, but we'll call it object-oriented. You're in luck because I'm going to teach you what an object is today. Are you ready? An object is, oh, I see people ready to take notes. You'll love this. An object is a thing. That's what it is. Specifically, it's anything that I can manipulate with code. So, if I'm just kind of looking over here at Excel, what's an object, do you think? So how about this column? Is that an object? That's an object. How about this row? Is that an object? Yeah. How about this range? Is that an object? Yeah. What if I had a chart in there? Is the chart an object? Yeah. What about the chart legend? Is that an object? Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, Professor Allen, tell us what isn't an object. Well, you see that gray line that's like between cells? That's not an object. That's one thing that's not an object. Interestingly, kind of before 2007, the whole menu structure in Excel were objects. You could manipulate them through VBA code. The ribbon in Excel is not an object. So we can do some manipulation of it through it. And it's part of the class. I'll teach you how to do it. But we look at this tab and we say, is that tab an object? The answer is no, that tab's not an object. Everything about the workbook, stuff you put on the workbook, the worksheet. How about the worksheet itself? Is that an object? Yeah. How about the workbook? Is that an object? Yeah. So anything that I can manipulate through VBA code in our world is going to be an object. They're things that I can manipulate through code. Now, objects have two characteristics that are critically important to really understanding how they work. The first one is called a property. So objects have properties, and properties it's just data that describes the way the object is. So if I was to think about, what are the properties of this cell, A1? I'm going to come back over here to my code, and I am going to say range. There's several ways that I could refer to that cell A1. So step one to refer to this cell over here, A1, is I've got to have some code that hooks me up to the object. That object is sitting somewhere in the memory of the computer. I got to find a way to get a reference to it so I can start working with it. Here's one way that I could do it. I could say active cell. Because right now A1 is my active cell, that would refer to A1. Now, if I really want A1 regardless of which one is active, there's several ways I could do it. I'm going to say, and we'll learn a lot about these. So don't get hung up on, oh, he's talking to us about how to do range. We'll have a whole class talking about how to refer to ranges. Today is just get the feeling for objects, properties, and methods. So here's a way I can refer to a particular cell. I can just say a range and then open a parenthesis, open a quote, and say A1. Close quote, close parenthesis. That refers to that, says, okay, I'm talking about that particular thing. I'm talking about that object. I've identified that object. Now, whenever I identify an object, this is true almost all the time. Whenever I identify an object, I'm going to refer to either a property or a method of the thing. A property is something that describes the way the object is. So an object has a property called its formula. Well, it has one called value. It's even simpler. So now, and you can see that if my VBA editor if what I've done is not too complex here, it'll figure out, oh, range A1. I get it. I know what you're talking about, a range. Well, all ranges have a common set of, all ranges have a common set of properties and methods. And so it's going to give me the list of properties and methods right here. So the properties have like a little, can you see it here? Let me zoom in, Windows Plus. They have a little, I'm not even sure what this is. It looks like a list of name value pairs with a finger pointing at one. It's not a very good icon, but that's the way it is. Methods have this. So unmerge is a method for a range. And what is that? That's like a block getting thrown across the room. That is an object doing something. And that's what methods are. Methods are instructions to the object to tell it to do something. Whereas properties is just something that describes how the object is. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to talk about the value. Oh, go back. So now, at this point, if let's say that there was a formula in there that said 1 plus 1 equals, the formula was equals 1 plus 1, what would the value property of that cell be? That would be 2. Now, in fact, so right now I've identified an object and a property. So right now that line says, it actually says empty because there's nothing in the value of that cell. But let's suppose that it said, what do I have to suppose? Stand by. 2. Okay. I can zoom in here a bit. So right now, this thing here evaluates to 2 because that is the value property of this object. Now, that's not enough. Every statement that I have in VBA has to be an instruction. Every statement that I have, every line has to be an instruction to do something. If I came to Dallin here and I said, Dallin, 2, what would he do? Is that an instruction? What if I said, write down 2? What would you do? Write down 2. That's an instruction. Write down 2 is an instruction, but 2, not an instruction. It's the same thing for VBA. If I tell the VBA interpreter 2, it's going to go, no idea what you're talking about. But if I said, print it, or let's see, I'm trying to think of something simple for us to do here. Instead of writing out that 2, I'm going to change the value. So that's like the simplest thing that I can do is called an assignment in VBA, and that's what I use the equal sign for. So I'm going to say 3. I'm going to say range A1.value equals 3. Now, if I look at that as an assertion of the fact, that's false. That's not true. That's false. That's not what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is this is an assignment. I am saying take what's on the right-hand side of equal sign and put it into what's on the left-hand side of equal sign. So when I run this, it's going to change the value values of property of the object. What's the object? A1. Question. Yeah, so how about case? Is it case sensitive? And the answer is not case sensitive. In fact, my editor is going to kind of give me a proper case. If I put VAL and I leave the line, it's going to go, we'll just move that down for you. So you really can't get the case wrong because it corrects it. But even if you could force it, and there's ways that we could go in and outside of Excel, we could go edit that and do it, and it would work fine. So it doesn't matter about case. It's not spacing sensitive either. So, I could put a lot more spaces in here. So if you've had Python, Python is going to be really picky about how your spaces are and how your capitalization is. VBA is not that way. In fact, space before, it'll respect. Spaces over here afterwards, it'll go, you don't need that. It'll take it out for you, which is sometimes a little bit annoying, but not often. And this actually goes back to the philosophy. What kind of language were they trying to make in 1995 when they made the language? And this is a really important distinction between VBA and other languages, is when they're making the language VBA, they said, we want this language to be really easy to use. So we want to, if the user types something, it's not quite right, we're going to guess at what they mean. Most respectable computer programming languages, if you don't give the instruction exactly what it's expecting, it'll just say, we don't know what you're talking about. Syntax error, we don't know. In VBA, it'll go, no, you didn't give me enough here. I'm going to guess at what you meant. In fact, here's an example. Most objects, in every other programming language that I know of, object-oriented programming language, if you say object and you say, you know what, I'm going to forget to put the property. I'm just going to say the object equals 3. Now, that object, cell A1, cannot equal 3. It has a property, a value property that can be 3, but the object itself is complex. It's got dozens of properties. And you can't just set the object equal to 3. In almost every other language, did I ever run that one? I should run that one and see it work before I do what I'm about to do. So I'm going to run this by clicking on the little, I'm going to have my insertion point here in the sub procedure. I'm going to run it by clicking the play button, and you'll see that it changed the 2 to a 3. Now let me put it to 4. And I'm going to tell it, no, you know what? I'm not going to put the property on there. Every other computer programming language, object-oriented programming language, will look at that and say, no. It would just say no. You can't do that. When they wrote the language VBA, they said, all right, what would we do if a user did this? And what does it do? You can look at that and say, you know what? My poor programmer probably just forgot to put value. And value is what they almost always put. And so I'm going to assume they mean value. It's guessing at what we really meant. This is syntactically invalid. Well, technically, it's syntactically valid because they've done this. But this is bizarre. And that works. What did it change? Did it change the value? Did it change the formula? Which property did it change? It changed the value. So, in fact, if I had a formula in here, like equals 2 plus 2, and I run this, you might think, oh, maybe there's a formula in that cell. Maybe they mean formula. And the answer is no. They mean value. We wrote over that formula with that there. So this is a big thing. So this is how we would write a property. We would say, we got this property here, we're going to put a new value in the property. Well, how do you read it out? Well, let's do this. We could just read, let's put dot value in there again. And I'm going to put this. So now what we're saying is, it says, okay, I see the equal sign in here. This is an assignment statement. It says, figure out what's ever on the right-hand side and put that in what's on the left-hand side. So this is me reading a property of an object. So now I'm saying, hey, what is the value property of range A1? What's the value of property range A1 right now? 4. So what does this evaluate to? 5. That will figure out, oh, that means 5. We're going to put 5 right here into this property of this object. And so I'll run that, and now let's change it to 5. Wait, so now what is the value of range A1? 5. So this expression now evaluates to 6, and then I'll put 6 in there. I can just keep clicking that, it'll keep going up because the statement changes the value that it's actually reading for the next time that it runs. So here I'm reading a value out, and because I'm using this on the left-hand side of an equal sign, I'm writing the value in. And so that's a big part of what we do in VBA is reading values out of objects, the properties of objects, and writing values into the properties of objects, because that changes the way the objects are. Ooh, 2 minutes. The other thing that we can do is, instead of working with let me go ahead and leave that there. Let me call this prop. I'm just going to rename this one prop, and I'll call this one method. Is we can tell, like A2, we can give it a method. So a method is an instruction to an object to do something that it already knows how to do. Objects know how to do things. And one of the things that objects know how to do is to make themselves active. Unlike a property, which can't be a statement by itself, a method is a statement by itself because it's an instruction. It's telling the object to do something it knows how to do. And so what am I saying here? Saying range A2, go select yourself. I'm telling A2 to make itself active. And range A2 knows how to make itself active. How do I tell it to invoke that built-in behavior that it has? I call the select method. And so now when I run this, that range is going to become the active range. So A2 became active. That's a method. So a method is me telling an object to do something it already knows how to do. Property is just a value that describes the way an object is. Questions? That's the foundation, folks. I will see you in class on Wednesday. Class dismissed. Feel free to applaud at the end of class. We will do great things that you'll want to applaud for. Today, I'm not sure that was applaud worthy. Hold on while I pause the recording.